Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk and a frontline review of my first general game. It took me about, I want to say 10, 12 games to get to general. We're going to talk about this as we go. I'll show you the gameplay. I'll give you a general overview of the things you're looking at on your screen here and some of the game mechanics. I wanted to get into the garage and dig into some of that. Unfortunately, there's a bug as of the patch of 2/19 of February 19th, Tuesday. You click on the icon, you can't get into the area where you can look at your tiering and levels and prestige level and all that stuff. So we'll talk about it as we go. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So let's look at the screen here. There's some differences in what is going on. We'll actually start at the top left here where it says private. All right, so this is private, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, general. You're trying to get to general. This is an experience bar. When you get enough experience done by capping or decapping or getting damage, then you become a general if you can get to there. And that is going to give you a bonus on your experience. You get a lot of experience and credits. We'll get that in a minute. You'll notice that the FPS is pretty good. My ping's at 113. The only reason I mention that is I'm telling you, Frontline's made my rig run hot. I have a good rig. It made it run really hot. So not optimized as far as I can tell, at least not for my particular rig. I don't know how it worked out for you guys, but I played Frontline for a while. My rig got super freaking hot. Just want to mention that. We are at stage 1, A, B, and C. This will change up a little bit as we move, but these are the zones. So we'll go ahead and bring up the map here. You can see that we've got A lane, B lane, and C lane. We'll just call it that for lack of a better term. You could go with middle, east, and west if you wanted to. But you've got cap points in each one of these areas. You also have 2 resupply points in each one of the first 6. You can see there's another resupply point there. I'm sorry, there's only 1 resupply point up here. There's a couple resupply points at the back for the defenders there. When you spawn in on offense, you'll be, or attack, you'll be where we are. You can see all of us stacked up down here. When you spawn in defense, you'll be right around this area right here at the beginning of the game. We'll talk about tank selection in a minute. So resupply points, the caps, 6 of them, and 5 turrets. The point of the attackers is to destroy 3 of the 5 turrets. The point of the defenders is to stop the attackers from doing that. Basically, though, trying to run the attackers out of time, which brings us up to the top right. We start with 12 minutes. So, if the defenders stopped us from taking either A, B, or C cap point, they would win in 12 minutes. When the timer goes to 0, the defenders would win in 12 minutes. When you take one of the cap points, you get extra time. I think it's 2 minutes. It is in no one's interest to win too fast or to lose too fast. This is a game farming mode, an experience and credit farming mode. There are no statistics, nobody's tracking, there's no bonus for winning. All that's unfortunate in my eyes. It's something I think they should fix, but that doesn't matter because this is what we have right here. All right, capture zone B, that's where I am. That's what I should do. This little arrow tells me I'm in the B lane right here. And obviously the map itself is similar. You see all the tanks running around. Down here, the mini map, you can see I don't see the whole map, okay? This yellow square is showing me the portion of the map I'm looking at. Little M below tells you to press M and this will come up. And you have a better idea of where you are. There's me, that little tiny guy down there. Shows my gun line. It actually shows the field of regard, tiny little green lines down there, what I see, my field of view on the screen right there. Hard to see though. That's how you get the mini map. You can make it bigger and make it smaller just like usual. Down here, coming back across the bottom, all of this is exactly the same except for this guy. Engineering, which is set up for number 7. Engineering is a passive combat reserve, which means it's always working. There are 6 combat reserves. There's engineering, there's a spotting plane, there is a smoke screen, there's an artillery strike, there's an airstrike, and there is an inspiration combat reserve, which increases the skills by 10% of everyone around you within a radius. Not sure what it is. It's not very big. I found that one to be the least useful. It's hard to get to people to kind of hang around with you. People are going in every direction on this mode. Okay, there's a lot of players here, so I found it not unusable. I just found it less useful than the others. Engineering is great for heavies. You can see I've got this defender right here for jumping on cap, because engineering will make your cap faster or it will block them better. That's where you get a lot of experience. We'll talk about that when we get into the game mechanics in just a second. An airstrike's an airstrike, kind of a box-looking area, a little bit more diffused than the artillery strike, but an artillery strike is an artillery strike. You press 7, you get an overhead view on both of those, and you get to lay them out. I'll show you that as we go. The artillery strike is very easy to lay down. The airstrike and the smoke screen can be a little bit difficult, and the recon flight, for setting them up, and it's easy to misclick and make them go in the wrong direction or the wrong place. Well, we won't see that on this game. We may see that on this game. I'm not sure if I have that set up in my other tanks. Because you're going to do this, you're going to set this up, the combat reserves, before you even start playing the game for each one of your tanks. And realize that heavies get 1, scouts get 3, I think mediums get 1, and TDs get 2. Artillery, I believe, also gets 3 or 2. That is one of the benefits of a scout. They can run around dropping smoke screens. This is what I use: smoke screen, airstrike, and artillery. Although it does take a while to build those up, all right, and they have a cooldown period after you use them. They are very effective. And then over here on the bottom left, the other thing to add is you can see this tank that's dark, this tank that's not lit, and this tank with +1 and 458. Takes 5 minutes to get a new tank. Right now, if I died right this second, I would respawn because I have 1 tank in reserve here. After 5 minutes, this one will fill up and I will have 2 tanks in reserve, which means if you die 3 times in a row, you're going to wait 5 minutes. Probably 4 and some change, because it's hard to die immediately after you spawn in. I suppose it could be done, but it's kind of hard to do. Congratulations if you manage it. But you're at least going to be somewhere around 4 minutes, more than likely. And I managed that in a couple games. You're trying to get to general. Already talked about that. You want this thing to last as long as possible. Personally, I didn't care if I won or lost. It simply did not matter. I wish it wasn't that way. There should be a bonus for winning, whether it's on defense or offense. But the problem with that is then that starts to decrease the reason why lots of people like the mode. So it's an interesting dance that Wargaming will have to play on that. Well, let's get started. It takes me a while to get going. We'll go ahead and just fast forward here. So like I mentioned earlier, you're trying to take the cap points. We're not going to get in too much to the tactics on each one of the A, B, and C lanes. Just suffice it to say that there are sniping positions on all of them, slightly less on B where I am. Over on the east side there are some spots. But on the A lane and the C lane, there are some hills, some sniping hills that really must be neutralized or controlled to avoid your guys on the cap, whether it's offense or defense, from getting wiped out. So I'm going to come up here, and the best way to approach this one is probably not the way I'd go. Do I actually go forward? Yeah, this is an early game. So I actually go in front of this bunker. Usually you want to cut around behind it. But I think does it get me a shot? No, it lets me see him and I miss him. And I'm going to head into B. So the even 90 jumps on, and I'm taking my engineering skill. And I want to jump on cap and try to cap this thing out. Now the even 90 has some cap points, but unfortunately he dies. So the way you decap is kill. If you shoot them, it'll block them, or if you get on the cap, it will block them from getting more cap points. But you have to kill them to decap. Now this IS-3A or IS-3 is in trouble, take some hits. And right off the bat, I'm up to private. See at the top left, the experience has gone up to private. I am on the cap, gaining cap points. And if I can manage to cap it out, that will be great experience for me. So here we sit, and the enemy is going to have to try to, if they want to stop me, to come in here and decap me or kill me. Realize there is artillery in this game. You're about to see the Su-14-2 take a shot on me. There's an explosion. There he is. Su-14-2. Remember, the combat reserves also have an artillery strike capability. Early on, nobody has generated one yet. So after a while, if you don't take one of these first caps, your cappers are going to get bombarded by airstrikes and artillery strikes. And realize that if it's later in the week of the episode, when people have leveled up a bit, which I did not talk about, we'll talk about now, but realize when people have leveled up a bit, those airstrikes and artillery strikes will become very, very effective. Notice the cap got me to lieutenant. What I mean by that is each one of those combat reserves has 5 levels. or tiers. See, it's all confusing how they do it, but anyway. We'll call it levels. 5 levels that you get. Every time you get a tier, you can get up to 30 tiers. You get a little coin, and you can improve your combat reserves by 1 with that coin. And each one of the combat reserves has 5 levels. See that math? What's 5 divided by, or 30 divided by 5? Exactly. 6. 6 kinds of combat reserves, each with 5 levels. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 tiers to prestige numerology. See how it all works very nicely? I think I did the math right. Okay. Anyway, later on in the week, people are going to have a lot better airstrikes and artillery strikes than when they start. Also, early in the game, when they haven't generated one yet, because it does take quite a bit of time before it's ready, they won't be able to bomb you. So you take that fairly quickly, get some experience along the way, you sim up to lieutenant. That is the way to get A, B, and C. You'll see it's becoming a slog over on C, and over on A it's pretty typical. Now let's just take a look at the strategic situation right now. We've taken B. A is threatened. Looks like they might have a decent chance of taking it. C does not look like anyone's home, right? Not many players over here. Lots of campers in the bottom right. You look where the Progetto is and some of the other guys. This is a problem in this game. If your zone or your lane, your cap, has too many of your team camping in the back trying to be sniper boy, don't go driving on the cap, because the enemy team will just drive on and kill you or snipe you. Just really quickly as an example on C, because the hill is a great example of this. All these guys are in the back camping, right? If you drive up onto C, you're going to get shredded by their guys up on the hill, because these dudes are not threatening them, and they're just going to have shots all day long. Plus, this is a great hold down spot. Guys will come up here and shoot you, and you'll get wiped out. So you really do need in this game some support while you're capping to keep them from either pushing on cap and killing you, or shredding you from the side on the various sniping spots. If you just sit in the back, you may be able to farm some damage, but you're not doing anything to help your team. There is an argument to be made initially, when there's a lot of time, it really doesn't matter a whole lot, to be quite honest. It simply doesn't. As long as you're farming damage, who cares? But if you sit back and let the first 10 minutes go away before you start grabbing more time, you're going to find it really hard to get all the way to the turrets with any time left. So that is one reason why you would want to do that. Try to get the caps a little bit early, but not too fast. When we won B, the cap, you'll notice that the highlight around it is dark green, meaning we've won it. The enemy team needs to get out. The defenders need to get out of that zone. The reason is that they're going to get bombarded by off-board artillery if they stay in. And I want to say it's about a minute they have. So if they're in a slow tank and you've won, you can expect them sometimes just to stay and fight. If they're in fast tanks, more than likely they're going to turn and run. And if you are the offender, as the defenders run, you want to get in position to shoot them as soon as possible. That is where tanks like the Progetto are especially useful. They're nice and fast, and then you can clip guys out who are trying to run away. Works out really nicely. In this case, you can see that I am taking shots from guys that are not in the zone, right? They are not in the bombard zone. They've actually fallen back, and they have shots on me all day, and I'm out here in the open. So I'm able to kill this guy, but I'm taking aggro from Su-130 PMs, another tank you see a lot of in this game, as well as Scorpions because of the relative mobility and good gun. And I'm going to come over here and cover up with the windmill and some of this ground over here. See if I can find some of these guys still running. So you'll notice that the B lane that I'm in is done pretty well. We're all moving forward. As usual, I find myself out front of everybody. No idea what they've been doing this whole time. C zone, not much home right there. A zone, they look like they're doing okay. There is some capability to move side to side, but you need a fast tank to do it. If I took my defender and tried to change over to the C lane or the A lane, it would take me forever. Be very careful in front lines about getting out of position as far as having targets to shoot for a long time. That is going to really hurt your ability to get to a higher level or higher rank in the game. Notice I'm at lieutenant, just about getting up to captain. But if you are idle and you can't find a target because you picked the wrong zone and you have a slow tank, it's kind of a miserable experience as you trundle forward attempting to get to the enemy. And invariably what happened to me in situations like that is I picked a zone that was lightly populated, let's call it that, lightly populated. And I said, well, okay, I'm going to go over here and make a difference. And I had a big tank, and we're going to trundle forward and try to take the cap. And invariably what happened is 4 or 5 of them spawned in randomly and decided to go to that zone, and I got gang tackled. So being alone in this game in a slow tank is very bad. It's bad in every game in World of Tanks, but especially bad in Frontlines. Let's go ahead and pause this for just a second. Look at the A lane. Front blocked, player limit reached. That means we have piled as many players as we can put over there. What I don't know is that a total player limit or is that our player limit? Unknown. I assume it's a total player limit. That may mean we have an overmatch over there. It may not. Maybe it's an even. The way it's mech'd in the coding, I don't know. I need to dig into that. But what I do know is you cannot go there. So now you have to pick B or C lane. Let's look at this for a second. What makes sense? Well, the B lane is moving on. It looks like it's decently populated. It looks like we can push on to E. But we haven't captured C yet. We haven't captured C yet. As an offender, I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I should go over there and help us capture C so we can get some extra time. We're at 7 minutes and 5 seconds left. Let's get that 2 minutes for C and move on.
Ready for deployment.
Okay, you'll notice that the battle button has come up. You have a carousel down below. You pick the tank you want, and then you click the battle button on the bottom right, and you're back into the game. And I've got the links right there. Now, what I haven't talked about are some of the other mechanics on the map, and those are the resupply points. You can see the little gear symbols on the map. Resupply points will resupply your hit points, resupply your consumables, and fix your crew. Be careful about using your consumables to fix your crew right before you get on a resupply point, which I have done multiple times. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm attempting to relieve some of the pressure on C. I see all that crowd of people down there. I'm really hoping with me messing with their flankers over here that they will jump on the cap and get the cap done. But unfortunately, they're in a bit of a scrum, and it doesn't happen. I'm just getting ate up by this 432. He manages to put a bunch of hits on me. I can't avoid it. I get it to captain, though, so damage, right? Is it necessarily bad to YOLO in Frontline? Not really, as long as you got another tank. But remember, I've only got one right now, extra tank. If I die and then die again really quickly, I've got a bit of a wait. Although it has time down to 1:50, so I'm actually in pretty good shape for that second tank to come up relatively quickly. I would be hard-pressed to die twice in 1:45, but hey, it could happen. It can happen if you have a fast tank in Frontline. So I'm going to run back. I'm going to show you here the resupply mechanic. Once I got beat up, I need to go get fixed up, and a fast tank, which is another reason why mediums and lights are good. Mostly mediums because they can also do a little bit of brawling. They can get back to these resupply points in a reasonable amount of time. Notice there's not a convenient one way over on the sniper hill. That's by design, I'd say. I have to come all the way back over here, and I'm going to jump in the resupply point. So jump in the resupply point, you can see that 17%, 34%. If you have engineering, this goes faster. Another benefit of engineering. And then I've got a 3-minute cooldown time before I can use that point again. Okay, 3 minutes before I can use that point again. Now, I mentioned earlier that light tanks have 3 of the combat reserves. You'll see that I've got smokescreen, artillery, and airstrike, and they have timers counting down till they're available. I get kind of silly. I come in here and decide to just go at these guys, give them a little bit of trouble, get a nice side shot on that guy. There we go. Keep on trucking, take a hit, and around the corner. Which seemed like a great idea when we had guys on the cap. Then the IS-3 dies, and we're not capping anyway, so there's no reason for me to sit on the cap. I'll get absolutely shredded, so we'll get out of here, take my links, and go home. And we're up to captain, on our way to major. Head around the corner here, and now you can see that I have an airstrike in 7 seconds, I have artillery ready, and I have a smoke screen. Unfortunately, one of the things I found it very difficult to add to my cross-check is paying attention to those reserves, those combat reserves, and using them, because they give you a lot of experience, especially the airstrike and the artillery. The guy shoots at me, and I can't control my tank, so I told you. Oh, man, I get to general, I swear, I really do. Happens. Now I have 22 seconds to wait. And I'm going to pick the Progetto M35. The reason I'm doing this is I want a little bit more mobility, and I want to be able to chase them if we start to win C. per the discussion I talked about earlier, I wanted a little bit more mobile. If you could work it perfectly, you would have a heavy on the initial part on attack, take the cap, die, respawn as a medium to rush to the next cap and take on the defenders before they're set up. It doesn't always happen that way, but that would be a nice way to do it if you could plan it this way. You'll notice the tank traps on Frontline are very effective. It just really slows you down. And if you're in a light tank, again, I'm just pushing that stupid thing. Eventually it goes away, but it'll virtually stop light tanks. So we're moving forward here. I'm going to try to go around. And we're still futzing around with C. So what do we got going on? We've got A, B. We really need to get C. We're threatening the other two, but we're not really capping any of them. Come around here. I'm trying to auto-aim this guy, but I really screwed this up. Miss. Oh, that was the crit, no damage. That's what happened there. And around, but not enough to kill him. And unfortunately, I'm going to eat a few more shots from this guy. Got my reload going. Thank goodness it's the Italian version. And he dies. We'll spin around and head back off this way. Notice that the resupply point is now at 14 seconds. 11 seconds, which means I can use it. So I'm going to head back to it and resupply. Again, a great advantage for 4 seconds, 3 seconds. See it timing down. Notice I'm not resupplying until right there. And I've got 58 seconds to the smoke screen. What's a smoke screen useful for? Well, smoke screen is useful for moving up onto a cap and covering your advance, or advancing on sniper positions and covering your advance. If you can get 3 tanks with engineering, jump on a cap and drop some smoke screens, they have a very hard time decapping you, because they can't see you. But realize later in the game there are so many people with the combat reserves that they'll have artillery, airstrikes, all kinds of things to stop you from getting on the cap. Or staying on the cap, more importantly. So we've won C. Now the fight is on. These guys are going to have to run for it. And here they go. Look at them, they're running. Run away! I really wish I had a 3 clip set up right there. That would have been nice. Most of the time, people really rush after the enemy, but unfortunately, these guys realize they're going to go ahead and stay and fight. So if you go raging out thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to gobble up a bunch of hit points, be careful, because if you're the first guy out to shoot, sometimes they know they're going to die and they shoot you. So I got to major on this one before we even captured all of the first zones. So we'll start moving. Remember, it's going to be all the same things. Get you experience here, they get you experience in the rest of the game. The capping, the decapping, the spotting, the tracking assist, all of that stuff. Added to that is the bonus, I believe, from the airstrikes and the artillery. I think that also gives you experience, which is probably one of the things that makes the reserve a little bit better, or at least those 2 reserves a little bit better than others. Now here's me trying to use the smoke screen. See how it sort of flopped around? And I actually did not put it where I wanted it. It's a little bit too close. There it is, drops in, and it makes it hard to see. Mine's not very good because it was not a very high tier. You can see it's not extremely effective. And actually, quite honestly, I think that's just the amount of time that it's there. I think they're all the same effectiveness. It's just the amount of time that it stays there. And I should have dropped it a lot further forward because it's sort of behind us there, doing not much good. But you'll notice when I dropped it, it sort of flipped around. So as you move your mouse, you can actually change the orientation of the smoke screen. And for me, at least, it was a little bit difficult to control, especially in the heat of the moment. So sometimes you may want to just stop somewhere safe, cover up, and start messing with it. A couple times I got to where I could hit triple R, go to the combat reserve like artillery with a top-down view, get that thing launched and fired, and then come back to my tank. But on several occasions, I drove up onto things or fell off cliffs and other things while I was doing that. So you're gonna have to work that one as best you can. Probably, if you want to make sure it works, stop somewhere safe, go to your overhead view or whatever it is that you're doing, and lay down that smoke screen, drop in that artillery or that airstrike, and then go back to your tank so it's not driving over things. So this is pretty typical as you approach. Got a bunch of defenders sitting back, hanging out, and they're all up on the sniper. Now I'm in a dangerous spot. If I get spotted here, I can get eaten up. I'm just really counting on this ISU not coming around the corner. So I'm backing up so I don't get proxy lit by the guy. and we clear a few off the cap. But you'll notice that we don't really have anybody that's interested. There's an airstrike going in on those guys. See the airplane flying by? If you get clumped up and the enemy knows where you are, you can expect an airstrike. It's just going to happen. That's unfortunate. And I don't quite kill him. And now I'm in a bit of a pickle. Because he's a ISU 152 with the... Has he got the big derp gun? That would really suck if he does. No, he's just got the big gun. He's going to point at me right here. And I am airstrike and artillery bait right now. I'm lit. There's a bunch of guys camping with not much else to do than that. But the good news is, I was actually covered up a bit by the building. It is not easy to drop artillery on guys hugging buildings. If you do it, just FYI, it's hard to zoom out right here. If you do it, drop it over here. So that if you drop it right on the building, then it's hitting the building and he's covered up. If you put it over here, then the blasts are hitting him, or more of the blasts are hitting the guy. And down KV-5 charges him. Well, that's good news for me. It means at least somebody's fired, so we'll go ahead and come around here. We got to clear this dude out so he's no longer... Oh my goodness, I'm terrible. I had to take a little bit more time to do that, and now I'm rushing forward here. Hopefully not to die from their snipers up there. And now we've moved forward, so hopefully that allows my team to start getting on the cap. You'll notice I'm damaged. Still have 2 tanks, and we're just farm alarm or ding dang right here. About halfway on major, a little bit less. That's a typical sniper point right there, where the Scorpion G is. Let's talk a little bit about sniper points and one of the other combat reserves, which is the spotting plane. There is nothing better than one of these sniper nests, that one in particular, or the one to the right over there, having a spotter plane go over as you approach, and 3 or 4 lightly skinned Scorpions and Scorpianskis all sitting there and getting shredded. And what happens is they'll be sitting there in their bush. When the spotting plane goes over, they're obviously immediately spotted. Now there's artillery again hitting me. They're immediately spotted, but their 6th sense takes 3 seconds. So that gives all the guys who are moving forward 3 seconds to zoom in. And what happens is you'll see them lit. Everyone's gun goes that way. Their 6th sense will go off. They'll start backing up, and just about the moment they start backing up, they disintegrate and disappear. See, I've got the experience. Moved forward in major for capturing the spot, and we get into general. And everything past here is just farming. Everything past here is farming. So how are we doing overall in the game? We have 5 of the 6. Looks like E is being threatened right now, and we are now moving back into the backfield. And I got general before we broke into the backfield. And at this point, you're just playing for more credits and experience. Let's talk about that a little bit. I really limited my gold use in this mode. It just really didn't seem like something you needed to do. Because there's no benefit to winning, then the inclination to push 2 to win that individual battle is much less. And you're just gimping yourself on credits if you continually shoot gold. Just got munched by a Scorpion G, it would appear, trying to push out. So I really did limit the amount of gold that I used. Occasionally I did press it. If I got one of the big armored tanks, especially in my Lurva, if I say I found one of the M449 things with the ridiculous front armor, a couple times I'd push 2 so I could actually pen the lower plate, which drives me crazy. But there you go, one example of many. But in general, I stayed away from using the premium rounds. Which brings me to another point. You might want to just use the small kits. I know a lot of people have a lot in the garage, and it may not matter to you overall, but if it does, switch out your big kits for small kits. You've got the resupply points. They regenerate anyway, so who cares? Plus, there's no benefit to winning. Other than it feels better, I guess. So why use all the try-hard stuff when you get the same relative effect from the smaller kits and things? Now, to be fair, there's other benefits to the large kit than just... Okay, there we go. Than just healing a crew member. It heals all the crew members at once. Got it. It makes it less possible to hurt them. There's a lot of other things involved right there. So because I got to general, I decided to goof around the links a little bit more. Also, it's got the 3 combat reserves. I was trying to arm those things up. thing you'll find out also about Frontlines is poking out is very dangerous when you're spotted. There are just so many guns in the game. Shooting HE at that guy. There are just so many guns in the game at any one time that you can't isolate all of the angles, which is another reason why people kind of like the mode. There are so many angles that you can go after. I'm just sort of thinking about this, looking at the big stack we've got. They have quite a few guys down there. The T-28's guarding that spot right there, so we're going to go ahead and cross over, find the FE-4202 sitting there, and then decide to... Whoa! Didn't see him. So there's one of the Frontline... Oh, geez. One of the Frontline rental tanks. And there were a lot more in here than I thought, so I just run by, see if I can get away from these guys. Oh, another hit. See if we can make it. Oh, geez. Shots coming in from every direction. And, alright, we made it. One of the things you can do in this mode is, since it doesn't matter necessarily that you win or lose, you can do fun things like that. I did have a lot of fun with the EBR links thing on this mode, even though it's not terribly effective. See a charioteer making a runner. It is a fun tank, and there were quite a few instances where I did barrel rolls and other crazy things driving around, just unfamiliarity with the map, and there's like things like that, you know, just going over random rocks. There we go. I finally remembered that we have the artillery strike, so I dropped that on that guy. Someone's dropping one near us, and we lose. Pretty much before I was able to get that strike off. So you know, note that it took me that long to kind of finally use one of those things down there. Try to bring that into your cross check. We never really got to the back on this one. I was able to farm enough damage, and we ended up losing anyway because we ran out of time. We needed to take E. This was a case where you notice how long it took us to take A, B, and C and move on. We used too much of our initial 12 minutes or whatever it was to start getting extra time, so we had no time. Even had we taken E, we'd only got another 2 minutes or so. There are some situations where you get some overtime. I'm not exactly sure on that. I'll have to look that one up. It's like a minute and a half, something like that. So I'll take a look at that in a more in-depth check on Frontline right there. But I just want to show you guys this, getting ready for the next, was it season? Episode. See, there you go, season episode. This is a season. The second episode would be in March. So we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go. But I just wanted to kick out this initial one with some general overall thoughts on Frontline. What do I think about it? I'm going after the tanks, right? So they've incentivized it because there's some cool tanks if you get enough prestige points. You need 27 to get the top 2 tanks. You can only take 2 of the 4. That's a lot. There's only 10 episodes. So do the math. That's 3 tier levels. Sorry, prestige levels in each episode, and I only got about 1.5 on this one. So I'm not going to get there. I'll probably get the Emil thing. I'm more than likely not going to get that tier 9 one, unfortunately. I just don't have the time. And it is a lot of time required on each one of these weeks. It's kind of in the realm of Clan Wars once a week for 10 months. It really is time-wise. Not quite as much, I'd say, because there's not all the planning and the other stuff you got to do, sitting around waiting for the matches and things. But it's about that much time. It really is. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. This was a long one. Appreciate the support of the channel, and we will see you.